outside we've got some light, an awesome spot to string a hammock.
Here he comes.
The first video tonight comes from Suffolk Camper, a UK-based solo camping channel focused on stealth overnights in isolated countryside locations, often blending real camping conditions with the psychological tension of historic and atmospheric environments. It is April 28, 2026 at St. Mary the Virgin's Church, Clopton, Suffolk, United Kingdom. As darkness fully settles in, the camper leaves the tent and begins moving deeper into the graveyard. He notes that despite camping in cemeteries before, this location feels noticeably heavier than others. That matters, because the tension starts before anything actually happens. The churchyard becomes quieter, visibility drops, and attention shifts entirely toward the older Gothic sections of the site.
My torch went out, hang on. Oh, what's going on? Here we go. Here we have another. This place seems so much friendlier during the day, but when it's lights out, it gets a bit spookier. See, I can't read any of these. Nice flowers though. These haven't been tended to for many years. These are people long forgotten about. Probably been decades.
Later, standing inside the stone church porch, he knocks against the locked wooden church door and waits for a response. Nothing answers back, but the silence afterwards becomes the focus, with the stillness of the building creating the impression that something may be listening from the other side.
Really quite strongly. I wasn't here before. I can really suddenly smell like manure. Really quite strongly. There's my tent. Maybe there's a farmer spreading muck like late at night or something, I don't know. But anyhow, I'm going to put this away and I'll see you guys soon, alright? I'll see you in a bit. Hey, how's it going?
While back near camp, a sudden strong smell moves through the area unexpectedly. The scent wasn't present earlier, and its abrupt appearance immediately stands out against the otherwise still environment.
Thought I heard something. Definitely feel creeped out around here sometimes. I just want to check around with the torch actually, because I sworn I heard something. Maybe I'm just being paranoid.
This one is driven almost entirely by atmosphere and perception. Isolation, then darkness, then equipment failure, then environmental change. Nothing is clearly seen, and nothing fully escalates into confrontation. But the structure works because the environment gradually becomes harder to read as the night progresses. And by the end, the fear comes less from the graveyard itself and more from how exposed the camper feels inside it once visibility and certainty start breaking down. Before we move on, if you're enjoying the video so far, leaving a like really helps. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. We recently passed 50,000 subscribers, and that's entirely because of you. The next target is 100,000 before the end of the year. Ambitious, but worth aiming for. There's a hidden word somewhere in this video. See if you can spot it. Now, let's continue. The next horrifying video comes from Steve Pike, a UK-based woodland photographer and outdoor creator focused on immersive forest walks, landscape photography, and documenting the atmosphere of dense woodland environments in real time. It is September 12, 2020 in Shield Forest, United Kingdom. Steve enters one of the older sections of Shield Forest, moving through a mix of pine and birch woodland while searching for photographic compositions. At first, the environment feels open and controlled. Natural forest sound is constant, visibility remains good, and the focus stays entirely on photography. But as he moves deeper, the woodland gradually becomes denser and more enclosed, shifting the tone away from casual exploration.
Just got down to that crossroads and it started to rain. So I looked over my shoulder and I saw a trail I've never seen before. Well, it's an invitation, isn't it? I saw a squiggly old oak down here as well. So, I think I've got a spider. I might have to derobe in a minute. Don't worry, I shan't leave the camera on. That looks a bit spooky down there. Let's go have a look then. Oh, very dark. I wonder why that's so enclosed. Let me know if you ever do this. See a dark, spooky trail off deep in a woodland somewhere, and just
The key shift happens when the surrounding bird activity suddenly stops. The forest transitions from constant ambient sound to near total silence. That change stands out immediately because it breaks the natural rhythm established earlier in the walk.
around up there. I'm pretty sure there's something moving around in there. The wind's coming from behind me, so if it's deer, they'll smell me. Not that I'm pungent, you understand, just my aftershave. Oh wow.
He cautiously approaches the tree line to investigate further. Broken branches and disturbed ground become visible, suggesting recent movement through the area. He considers the possibility of deer activity, but the lack of direct visual confirmation keeps the source uncertain.
Oh wow. I didn't want to start lit. It's headed right deep into the... It's like a cross between silver birch and pine. Today can do what it likes. After I see a deer, I'm like, that's me done. Stick a fork in me, you know. This is their territory. I mean, you can see how broken the sticks get. Stuff like this. I'm not saying that deer have been chewing on it, but something's rubbed up against that stick. And then there's a lot of broken ground here. You can see how it's been...
He disengages from the area entirely and returns to the original photography route, choosing observation over escalation. This one is driven almost entirely by environmental change. Open woodland, then isolation, then silence, then movement. Nothing paranormal is claimed, and nothing is ever clearly seen. But the tension works because the environment gradually becomes harder to interpret the deeper he moves into it. And by the end, the decision to turn back feels less like fear and more like recognizing the limits of visibility and control inside dense woodland terrain. The next chilling video comes from Wild About Wales, a UK-based solo wild camping and bushcraft channel focused on immersive tarp camping in remote woodland environments. It is October 27, 2025, in a remote mist-covered woodland valley, United Kingdom. The camp begins under heavy mist and low visibility. Almost immediately, the camper comments on movement somewhere beyond the shelter area, though nothing can be clearly identified through the fog. That matters because the atmosphere changes early. Before the camp is even fully established, the environment already feels difficult to read.
There, propping it up to give me that extra bit of headroom. And we're looking in front of me. I just spotted those horses again, walking through those trees for the mist. Yes, it's a cracking little spot.
As conditions become quieter, later into the evening, heavier movement is heard deeper within the forest. The sound appears larger and slower than earlier activity, but visibility remains too poor to immediately confirm a source.
You've got that owl out there. But that's not what I was hearing. I was just about to go to bed. And I can hear branches snapping, something moving around out there. On the wind, it's just picked up. Don't worry, I'm not one of these YouTubers who does these scary videos. I had a good walk around. I could hear some noises coming from over there. I shone my torch down there, and I could see a big black figure. Just turns out it's one of those horses, but it's so quiet.
He eventually leaves the shelter with a torch to investigate. A large dark figure briefly appears through the trees before finally resolving into one of the horses seen earlier in the evening. At the same time, the reflective eyes are identified as sheep grazing throughout the woodland, their eyes catching the light through the mist. This one is driven by visibility and misinterpretation. Mist, then movement, then reflections, then close-range sound. Nothing threatening actually develops, but the environment repeatedly obscures normal wildlife activity enough to make it feel uncertain in real time. And that's what carries the tension, because throughout the night, the woodland keeps creating the impression that something unknown is nearby, until each moment slowly resolves back into the natural environment around the camp. The next shocking video of the night comes from Austin Schrock, an outdoor adventure creator focused on wilderness navigation, survival challenges, and technical cave exploration in remote environments. It is April 10th to 11th, 2026 in Rusk County, Wisconsin, United States. After a freezing night outdoors, Austin begins navigating toward hidden cave coordinates using compass bearings and terrain reference points. The environment quickly becomes more isolated as he leaves the ATV trail behind and moves into steep woodland terrain.
There, looks like a little bit of a cavern. Well, it's not really looking like much. You can tell over the years, giant chunks of these rocks just broke off and fell down the face here. I could have easily buried it. The only thing harder than climbing across this jumbled mess of rocks is doing it with a pack on and holding a phone with the other hand. I really don't want to twist an ankle back in here. I don't know how deep it has to be considered a cave, but I don't think that's a cave. Well, there's some neat features along here. So far, no cave. I've been moving laterally on the side of this cliff. I'm gonna go back down to the bottom, walk along it, see if I can see anything from down there. Well, this is the closest thing I've found to a cave so far. It's not very big, it goes down in. I think it just dead ends down in there. I'm gonna take my pack off and go down in there and see what we can find.
Inside the cave, the risk becomes immediate. His foot wedges between rocks while moving through the frozen passage, forcing him to stop completely in a confined space. That's the first real escalation point, because underground, even a small loss of movement becomes serious very quickly.
I have to back out. I might get stuck. Ow. Man, if I need to get down my belly to see from here. Alright, belly crawl, here we go. Yeah, seems like it did end. Hissing sound. Anyway, so that narrow part there probably goes back in 10 feet, about the furthest I can get back in there. And it dead ends. Alright. Well, there wasn't a sign here saying this is the Five Guys cave, but that is by far the most cave-like thing I have found there. So I'm gonna call it the cave. Success.
While preparing to leave the chamber, he suddenly stops after hearing a distinct hissing sound deeper within the cave system. No source is identified, but the sound immediately changes the atmosphere inside the passage. The following day, he returns with additional people to retrieve forgotten equipment and continue exploring another squeeze passage. Even with backup, the tunnel remains physically punishing. Tight vertical gaps force awkward movement through rock, with repeated impacts against the cave walls, while squeezing through the exit section they nickname the birth canal. This one is defined by confinement and margin for error. Navigation, then descent, then restriction, then entrapment risk. Nothing supernatural happens, and the tension never relies on mystery. Instead, it comes entirely from the environment itself. Because once inside the cave, every movement becomes consequential, with almost no space for mistakes, panic, or recovery if something goes wrong underground. The next video comes from Mandog Wild, a UK-based adventure channel focused on solo wild camping, survival skills, and investigating unexplained wildlife activity in remote woodland environments. It is October 1st, 2023, in a remote woodland area, United Kingdom. The expedition begins with the discovery of large animal tracks in wet mud near the woodland route. The prints immediately stand out due to their size and shape, particularly the absence of visible claw marks. That detail matters because it shifts the assumption away from a dog or fox toward something feline. From that point onward, the entire camp is framed around the possibility of a larger predator moving through the area.
And so, it's definitely a bed area for something. It's not small either.
So in India, in big cat country, many people in high-risk areas will actually wear a mask on the back of their head.
The tension peaks during the final night, while he lies inside a low-profile bivvy setup. Heavy movement suddenly crashes through the undergrowth close to camp, loud enough to clearly track direction, and wait through the bushes. No visual confirmation is made, but the scale of the movement immediately stands out against the otherwise silent woodland.
Pretty vulnerable position. Whereas a tent, at least you could sit up in a tent. But yeah, right now, just feeling a little vulnerable. But best idea for camouflage, being that it's low lying, but yeah, not for vulnerability.
Moments later, he records an update from inside the bivvy, admitting how exposed the setup suddenly feels. That's the key shift, because unlike a tent, the bivvy leaves him almost level with the surrounding ground, with very little separation between himself and whatever is moving outside in the dark. This one is driven by accumulation rather than confrontation. Tracks, then bedding, then movement close to camp. Nothing is ever clearly seen, and nothing directly attacks or approaches the shelter. But the structure works because each sign keeps reinforcing the idea that something large is operating within the same area throughout the trip. And by the end, the tension comes less from what the animal actually is, and more from how close the camper feels to it, while remaining completely unable to see it. Before we get into the next clip, around 70% of people watching aren't subscribed. We're working toward 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And if you're enjoying the video, hitting subscribe really does help. All right, let's get back to it. The last video of the night comes from Adirondack Outdoors, a solo wilderness camping and outdoor survival channel focused on the Adirondack Mountains of New York. It is April 21st, 2026 in the Adirondack Mountains, New York, United States. After finishing a stretch of fishing upstream, Matt begins heading back toward camp. The environment remains calm until he notices something unnatural near the roadside embankment.
With a whole bunch of f***ing trash in it. Scumbags, dude. I hate this shit. Like, there's fucking light bulbs, glass jars, can of bug spray.
Instead of leaving it behind, he climbs down the unstable embankment to recover the bags himself. The terrain makes the retrieval awkward and physically demanding, especially while hauling the waste back uphill. That changes the sequence from observation to responsibility.
Every time. I never come unprepared. Bears, not really scared of those. Coyotes, again, not really scared of those. It's the crazy mountain people. I've seen way too many movies. Wrong Turn, Hills Have Eyes. Those two alone. I ain't playing no games. They always come up here bearing arms.
The following day, more dumped rubbish is discovered elsewhere in the forest. That reinforces the earlier discovery as part of a wider pattern, rather than an isolated incident.
Yeet! Bullshit. All right, guys, thank you for joining me on another episode of Adirondack Outdoors. It was a fun weekend. Didn't have to kill ourselves to catch a fish. Did forget a couple things like the milk and the creamer and the water. But that's okay. We learn from our mistakes, right? If there's anything you guys want to see me do in my next video, please drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see. I'm always down for suggestions. You want to push me to my limit? Challenge accepted. And if you're feeling so inclined and you want to help your boy out, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Let's take this journey together, guys. I will see you in the next one.
As snowfall begins unexpectedly near the end of the trip, he returns to collect the remaining debris and metal left behind before finally leaving the mountains. This one is driven less by survival and more by contrast. Remote wilderness, then evidence of neglect, then isolation setting in overnight. Nothing dramatic escalates, but the tone gradually shifts from peaceful outdoor exploration to discomfort with how isolated the environment actually is once darkness takes over. And by the end, the trip becomes less about camping itself and more about responsibility, both toward the wilderness and while moving through it alone. We appreciate you for watching. If these creepy encounters gave you chills, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next drop. There's always another mystery waiting just around the corner.